Action! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. I'm Thundercloud, Repairian, and my mum calls me James. This is our open mic Wednesday Words. Woo! Yeah, and it's one of the biggest one we've had for a very long time.
Yes.
Did I just hear someone walk in the front door? Or not?
No,
I don't think so.
They'll find their way.
They sure will. Alright, so beginning the night with acknowledgement of country, that we're here on Band by Country, and acknowledging the elders past, present, future, and their continuing connection to the land, and also acknowledging that sovereignty has never been ceded. And on that, I'm going to move straight along into a bit of poetry here. This one's from the Penguin Book of Australian Verse, given to me by Warren Lacey, and just this week donated. And this is by Harold Stewart, born in 1916. And Harold Stewart was one of the authors responsible for the Ern Malley affair, yeah. Ern Malley, they basically, Harold Stewart and another fellow, I can't remember his name, decided that they would take the piss out of the surrealist poets. And they sat down one day and they wrote about 20 or 16 poems, I don't know how many it was, and sent it off to a publisher and said that this guy had just died, and they just wrote the crappiest stuff they could think of. Anyway, this guy published it, and all these surrealist poets thought, oh wow, this is incredible, amazing stuff.
It is.
Yeah. They were just taking a piss. Anyway, the publisher who published the book actually got taken to court for fraud, but also publishing obscene poetry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was 1946, I'm pretty sure, or 43, something like that. Anyway.
Fancy considering the Ern Malley poems obscene.
Yeah, well, I did, yeah.
Oh,
so
let's have a few of them this evening.
Yeah, well, I haven't got any with me. Or this is Orpheus and the Trees by Harold Stewart. Lips only sing that cannot kiss. Orpheus had suffered in his bliss an arid metamorphosis, but now Eurydice is dust, the thirsty desert waste of lust. That drained with drinking overlong, Pierian sources dry of song, a barren spell no longer brings his inspiration, secret springs, gushes forth again. The poet sings. Now passion, broken in, has grown, sublimated wings and flown, but where its hoof once struck, his scene of inner wildernesses green with overflowing hypocrisy. His fluency can move with ease the oak of bones, the willow trees of branching veins and arteries, the ever-trembling poplar curves to catch his air that stirs the nerves. Eradicated from their trance, the vegetative trunks advance, and ivy sinew join the dance, while Daphne, her remembered limb, sways to keep in time with him. Their dance has ramified until a glade of quiet crowns the hill, for where he sat, a spell has bound the audience of trees around, melody bubbling from the ground. The vocal fountain rises higher, as though emotion would aspire in slender exaltation, where the heights of contemplation bear aloft the dome of summer air. The waters at their summit play, then part and shower a sunlit spray of tones, their cadence falls away, the silver lyric soars and sighs, no sooner born than music dies. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
I'll read a bit more. Oh, he's always good. I always like to hear Harold Stewart.
Yeah.
He's got that funny timbre, hasn't he? That old time
Aussie
Aussie feel.
doing it in a triplets and couplets and couplets and triplets. So, yeah.
Have you heard his stage play, the radio play, Fire on the Snow?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that should be on the computer.
Okay.
They all freeze to death. He
All
does
right.
it with
Well, I
beautiful.
got some. Next one, I got some. Well, no, after A.D. Hope. This is Leon Geller, and this is from the Australian Verse, or Comic Australian Verse, edited by Jeffrey Lehman and by Leon Geller. This is the Brolga. The Brolga, or Australian crane, holds dancing orgies on the plain, and students of the Russian ballet of creeping crowds across the Mallee, far beyond the desert grasses to where the Brolga holds its classes, and many a motive for the leg has emancipated from an egg, but certain purists do not care for such technique and prudes declare specific movements of the Brolga unacademic, if not vulgar. And then the Emu, again by Leon Geller. And the emu makes, though prone to fret, a quite accommodating pet. By dint of arduous explaining and tactful and intensive training, it may be taught a mild routine to lighten the domestic scene, to peg the clothes, to draw a phaeton, to greet such guests it has to wait on, and other preferential chores, to tile the roof, to polish floors. In doing jobs like these, the emu will grow to cherish and esteem you. So that's Leon Geller from The Emu and the Brolga from Comic Australian Verse. Alright, A.D. Hope, considered probably one of the greatest poets of the 19th century, but also very kind of unknown in Australia, but very well known overseas, in America of all places. This is to Julia, walking away. Darwin's daughters have no tails, yet a reminiscent motion agitates the lovely frails at the seat of amputation. Charles called Eve and Adam lies and denied the garden state, yet the gate of paradise could not wholly liquidate. Julia's coccyx never can, swerving in delicious schism now to the descent of man towards fundamentalism. Darwin, palely from the dust, argue in her ambulation, was Eve genuine or just a gorilla on probation? So that's our comment on Darwinism.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting, because it's kind of been disproven, hasn't it, Steve?
They used
By
to
genetics, yeah.
they used to do him in school, but he had too much sex for the syllabus going back to the 40s. This is 60s, so they knocked him off a lot of the classrooms.
Okay.
But they used to do him big time.
Darwin.
And
Or
then,
A.D. Hope.
yeah, then a lot of teachers complained about the sex.
Really?
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
You're all bunch.
Very interesting, that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna, before we move on, and would you like to go up next after this, Steve?
Yeah, not a problem.
Right, I'll do two of my own now.
Yeah, okay.
What I've written in the last week, and then I'll do some more of my own later. We've also got Ashley Albanese, we've got Gladys Wilson here tonight, going to do one of hers. After Steve, we might ask Gladys to come up if that's all right, and then Roger, Wirogiree, Ashley, and all right. This is an at rhyme. There once was a cat and his name was Fat. He ate a lot of mice and got very, very fat. He wore a big hat and sat on a mat, and his owner named Nat would give him a pat. The cat named Matt was a bit of a brat. One day he was chasing a gnat, bat and rat, and ran onto the road, and a truck made him flat, and that's the end of the cat named Matt. And that's that. Yeah, that's that.
That's that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got disobey stickers, but I can't actually show you one. So anyway, if you want a disobey sticker, Well, this is called disobey. Well, conformity actually leads to people doing things that they wouldn't often generally do. Anyway, Governor said, "Jump off the cliff. You'll fly and be free. But don't look first, because you won't jump if you see. Jump off the cliff and you'll get your freedom back." So he jumped and he flew, and his name was Obedient Jack. The ground came up fast as he quickly flew down. Free wasn't happy, screamed, wore a frown, hit the ground, and the following is what his governor said: "You can have freedom, but you'll quickly be dead." Jump off the cliff, you'll fly. You'll be free, you can fly. But he questioned authority, didn't jump, didn't die. This happened to be the governor's darkest hour. Disobedient James questioned authority and took back his power. Said, "Mr. Governor, in my pocket you're pissing. I critically question authority and critically listen. You go first, show me how to be free and to fly." The governor jumped, James was free, and James didn't die. The moral of the story is it's often best to wait, never jump off a cliff and get the governor to demonstrate, never blindly follow the authority of the state. Don't rush to be first, and it's best to patiently wait. And the compliant will give up their lives and don't see, while the disobedient question before jumping off cliffs to be free, and realise not to blindly follow what the governor said, because the blind lead the blind and the blind end up dead. Finally, there's one last thing that I've left to say. To be free, take back your power, question authority, and disobey. Woo! And over to Steve Wordsmith.
Great original piece.
Oh,
let's get something up here.
Come on, been on fire this week.
Fire this week.
Yeah. The great Steve Wordsmith, come on down.
G'day everybody out there in Facebook land and YouTube land. It's really, really good to be here. Back in the Australian Poetry's Hall of Fame. It's a wonderful place to be. My name's Steve Wordsmith, and my book is Where the Rubber Hits the Road in this game they call life. And I haven't been around the world, but I've been around the block. I don't know it all, but I know a bloody lot. I don't have a house or a place of abode. I spend most of my time on the side of the road. I'm an outback poet just moving around with my heart in the bush and my feet on the ground. I've travelled this land from the top to the bottom. I've been to the Murray, I've seen the cod rotten. I've travelled from east and I've travelled from west. I've travelled with zeal and I've travelled with zest. People say, where does a fella like me come from? See, I was brought up in the country in a place called Wedderburn, on the side of the Georges River with the stags and the elks and the ferns. There wasn't many luxuries, no, things weren't very plush. But we had this long drop dunny called the orifice of the bush. There's one thing that I know for sure, and I spent a lot of time just doodling in the dirt there, and I even wrote some rhyme, a place to fantasise and figure out, but everything was true, a hideout from the washing up like young lads often do. I'd always lift the lid up to avoid a bit of fright, to eradicate the chances of the dreaded redback bite. Like mum's old chook, I'd settle in with me pants around me knees to the sound of the neighbour's rampant bull and fruit bats in the trees. Like a medieval king, I'd sit upon his gilded throne, my favourite place, I must admit, in our lovely country home. Yes, I'm a connoisseur of dunnies, of this it is a fact, a place to try, a place to check. Before I hang my hat, I remember when I left the bush in a council house in town. There was an outhouse out the back, yeah, a place to settle down. It wasn't quiet as our country home, but it had all the mods and cons. Running water, electric light, and an oven to cook scones. I'd only been there a week, I think, when I awoke with an awful fright. There was a shadow past the window in the middle of the night. I'd heard about these prowlers and their low-down thieving tricks, but they'd taken on the wrong bloke this time, this lad from out the sticks. Well, I hit the floor running. There wasn't time to put on clothes. I'll get that flaming larrikin and I'll probably break his nose. through the front door quietly. The blood was pumping fast. I'd stop him at the gate, I thought, as the bare feet hit the grass. He was running up the footpath with his booty on his back. I'd played rugby in my school days and I'd stop him in his track. Well, I hit him round the ankles and he had nowhere to go. Yeah, I dropped him like a dunny lid and all he said was, "No!" The smell was something awful. I'd never live it down. I'd nailed the poor old dunny man and I'd dropped him on the ground. There was excretion all across the grass and right across the road. The lid had left the dunny can and he dropped the flaming load. Well, throughout my years of wandering, I think I've tried the lot. There's the environmental sound ones, there's flush lavatories, and there's pots. There's collectors of pubs, of pins, of bottle stamps and plants, but I'm the international, no, universal secretary of the place you drop your pants. I've tested loos across this land and I've tried the loos abroad. There's the ones you pull their chain on, there's authentic ones and there's frauds, but there's nothing in comparison when you have to strain and push as a good old Aussie dunny and the orifice of the bush. Yeah, it's an interesting time when we get here and we start telling yarns and poetry and things that we do. And, you know, I've spent many years just telling yarns and telling stories of this country. There is magic in the mountains with the Aussie sounds around us as we travel through the universe and we thrive here in nature as Mother Earth supplies. With the waters from the mountain springs and the sounds of birds as they sing and a gentle breeze just whispering a lovely lullaby. When the fire burns around us and the forests are ablaze and the smoke is so thick and you can't see through the haze and the anguish of the hurt and the loss of the affected in its path through many trials and hardships throughout this southern land as the devastation spreads and the virus comes to bear. There is a time of gathering while the crew are slowly mustering and instruments are tuned up to make that special vibe. Yes, the magnetism is magic, not bound by the illusion and the outside world's confusion as we open up our eyes. Yes, we open up our real eyes and we realise the real lies to the truth that has been found. So we live in here in abundance with the Aussie sounds around us, with the orchestra of nature, and we find our place in the symphony, tried by virus, fire and floods and hardship, and the spirit of this southern land really comes alive. It's always good to tell poetry, it's always good to write poetry. It's good to get here with James, Thundercloud. He's known for all sorts of stories and things that he tells, and it's a great place to be. Thanks for inviting us here, James.
You're welcome.
And we hope that many other poets come. I'd like to say hello to all the international people that watch us from the different countries of the world. This is the Australian Poets Hall of Fame, Poetry's Hall of Fame. And I'd just like to invite everybody to tune in and welcome us here and say hello in this time of great understanding. When we need to be writing poetry, we need to be telling the stories, because what is poetry? Poetry is our thoughts written down, and they come in many ways. I'd like to sit down now for a little while, James, and let some of these other wonderful poets have a word and a magic. See you in a while.
Right, well, thank you very much, Steve.
No worries, James.
Short and sweet tonight. I suppose it's not just you and I.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, our very next special guest, Gladys Wilson. Now, this is going to block you because it's too big for you. I don't have a smaller one. Are you ready to read from that?
Yes, I can read from that.
All right, here you go, Gladys.
Good evening, everyone, and it's lovely to be back after the lockdown and be back with my very good friends, because I missed them over, I think, 5 weeks or something. It felt like 5 years to me, but it's lovely to be back, and a beautiful place, a wonderful place to be, back with all my friends. At any rate, this is about an old homestead, and it's just called Haven Rest. And I think it's the nursing home Rest Haven, I think we've got that the other way. At any rate, the historic homestead is surrounded by the beauty of tall pine trees, and late in the evening all sway to a gentle breeze. But this stately old manor has stood silent over many years. Now to see the once grand masterpiece would bring you all to tears. The doormat that said welcome, looking all shabby and worn, left there unforgotten, only to sadly mourn. A polished marble staircase that was kept so spruce and neat now stands alone in silence, no longer the patter of feet. The chandelier that brightly lit up the hallway nearly every night, now covered in dust and cobwebs, where once would shine a light. A rusty windmill squeaks and rattles from the howling winds at night, while the silvery moon sailing above shines its guiding light. Weeping willows along the creek bed gracefully bend and sigh, as the river in all its glory peacefully flows on by. As daylight hours draw to a close and evening shadows fall, the only sound that you will hear is from a night owl's call. A bell that never rings, and the walls sound out their eerie cry, as the faded curtains on the windows wave their last goodbye. The old homestead once thought by many as nothing but the best, and weary travellers passing through just called it haven rest. In fact, I do have a new one, I want at the moment, and it's a road map of life. A road map of our lives, and it's quite a good road map too, because it's demonstrating what sort of how our lives are, how we shape our lives from when we are created. Of course, we're all created and we're all God's children, and this is just showing an example. If we follow, there's two paths, and if we follow the right path, of course, there's a very winding path we follow. And it's all now coming together. So that should hopefully be on the weekend, most likely, the day of the poets' breakfast. Now that's next month, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, so that should hopefully, but yes, it's just, and it's an insight, and it's just telling real thing, because our lives are like a road map when we stop and think about it. Yep. So that one's a fair bit's down. I've got a fair bit of it down, so that one is coming up. Okay, well thank you, James, and thanks everybody for coming. It's lovely. It is nice to have you all here, and thanks Stuart, my very good old friend.
Thank you.
All right. Well,
Good work, Gladys.
in a moment we got Ashley Albanese. Is that how you say it? Albanese coming up, and Wirogiree.
Can I jump in? Because otherwise I'll get too nervous and won't do it.
Yeah, okay. You can jump in as soon as I do this one.
Yeah.
Because this is the story of Boxhead. Yes. I used to work with a guy.
Did you surf there?
Huh?
Did you surf there?
Surfing at Boxhead. No, it's just a guy. It's his name.
Who used to go surfing with?
No, I used to work with a guy called Boxhead. Yeah.
Don't confuse matter.
Don't play with words.
His head was in a box and they called him Boxhead. Boxhead believed all that he heard and was said. And when he didn't know the answer he was guessing, Boxhead wouldn't research and couldn't critically question. In a blind psychosis, Boxhead was insane. Whenever he tried thinking, it just hurt his brain. The box didn't have holes, so Boxhead walked about blind, believing the programmed thoughts in his mind. And Boxhead was angry and always in grief. Boxhead blindly accepted every pre-programmed belief, but one day he took off his box because he got a fright. Boxhead left the dark and could finally see the light. He was in a garden of flowers in the middle of a park. Boxhead took off his box, was no longer in the dark, and this is what Boxhead was heard to say: "Now I'm out of this fear box, I can finally play." Alright, that was written 10 hours ago, so fresh off the press. Very Mark Svenson, everybody. Next.
Well, it was about Boxhead where you used to go surfing for me.
Okay.
And that bloke was out catching the dumpers with you.
Well, welcome everyone. This one's just come to me, so you'll have to bear with me.
Have you come to it?
Oh, that's it. we shall see. I was going to call it St James's Palace. I've been a bit worried about St James's Palace. There's been all sorts of skullduggery. I don't know what Prince Andrew's been up to, but it's come to my attention and I'm rather worried. Nevertheless, I decided to call this piece James's Minestrone. It's been a big day. I was up early, as usual, far too early. I've had a few visitors, I've had some phone calls, I've been going, battling technology. I've had Billy on the phone. Billy's based in one of the plains, I think. I've had the lovely, what was that American fellow's name? He's coming to me from Miami via the UK. I'm not quite sure how that works, but he's helping me out with some little investment that I might make. Okay, so I've been listening intently and I've been battling the apps. I've been going hard at it and it's not going to defeat me because that charming American man, via satellite circling the globe, is solving every problem for my US $400 to get into his maw. I've been going at it since sunrise. I've been going at it. Oh, there's nothing going to stop me. There's not going to be unexpected visitors. There's been cops knocking on the door. But I'm not giving up. That US $400, it's gonna be. Oh, it's gonna be my open door. I don't know where it's going to take me. I don't know where I'm going to invest this money. But I've been watching the grass go up and down.
Give it to the Poets Hall of Fame.
I've heard of this thing called cryptocurrency. I don't know much about it, but apparently I've invested in bitcoins and I wasn't even aware that I'm a Bitcoin owner, but apparently I am. So now it's a case of, are my bitcoins worth anything? And I better get them moving before the whole thing falls apart and turns out to be just one big Ponzi scheme. So get that money invested, Mark. Battle those graphs and those apps. Get on that phone, get that charming American, Miami via the UK, via somewhere else, and the Cayman Islands, I think it may have been. Oh, look, if I ring up a few Australian pollies, they'll know all about it. They'll know how to access Cayman Island accounts. I'm sure that my $400 is safe. I'm sure I'll be in the big bicky soon. It's going to be the beginning of my retirement fund. And you may laugh, but it's going to be high noon soon.
Right, okay. How can I peak with that? Okay, I do a bit of my own poetry. I'm from down south, from the Barclays country. But I'm not going to do none of my poetry tonight because I'm still working on some material that I've done over the last couple of years. So I thought I'd read you a poem from the Bronze Swagman Book of Bush Verse by the Whitman Centenary Edition. And this poem here was written by Eric Watson of East Lakes in New South Wales. And it's called Pictures in the Mirage. As I stood and watched the mirage making pictures in the sand, a cruel trick of light has leaned in an old crafty land. The golden sun was fading from the April-tinted range when I caught my breath in wonder at a vision clear and strange. Down a glowing shaft of sunlight, like a cold and accusing sign, came the spirits of a dark man in the straggling ghostly line. Marching from far off dreamtime in the trickle fading light to the fast approaching sundown and the darkness of the night. Through the Guyra strode the hunter with his spear set crouching low, and fierce-painted warrior carried vengeance to a foe. While the dark-eyed laughing lubras piled the lily tubers high, and the youngsters searched for the honey in the trees against the sky. Watchers on the coastline left their fishing nets in awe, as the white-winged ships of England sailed like the fated towards the shore. Then the sad and silent river flowed before me for an hour, bearing bodies dark and swollen from the white man's poisoned flower. From the dusty timber, stockboy Combo on his horse rode all day for the tea and baccy, making him fortune for the boss. At the doors of the iron humpies just outside, 100 towns, sullen men and saddened children watched the walls with puzzled frowns. In the lack-laying city, stubble-cheeked and the fertile eye, dead beat beg for metho, lost to the shame and grace and the pride. While these hungry barefoot children searched for the rubbish bins like crows, and the sisters sought the darkness where the savage night life goes. As I moved towards the sundown, my heart went cold with fear, and I called and ran to help them, but they didn't seem to hear. Then I stumbled into the darkness, and the last of them was gone, save as one bearded warrior who called them in a song. My people, oh my people, will the darkness soon be done? Will we find a way tomorrow to walk proudly in the sun? Spirit fathers to the shadow times we need to hear today, to give us strength and courage and the light to find our way.
That's a great.
Yeah, that's a
Great reading.
So Ashley, are you going to stop up there now?
Yes.
And you've done some wonderful stuff as well. So.
Oh, well, I didn't realise we'd be going out to the WHIRLD as well as the WORLD tonight. To quote John Donne, who can always be quoted, I wanted to make an ad tonight for the people who wandered in from the dark to share words and conviviality. This book, Girl with a Monkey, is the first thing that Thea Astley wrote, and it's really, I've read it 5 or 6 times, in my view, really a masterpiece. It deserves to be better known and better audited by Australians. I'll just read the last page of it, which has a particular punch. The novel is really novella length, it's about 130 pages, and at the end, the young primary teacher who's been up north with this bloke here, drinking beer in Townsville. I do exaggerate. She's been up north as a young primary teacher, and she has a fling with a workman who's not quite on her level intellectually, but he's a decent enough cove. And at the same time, she gets tied up with one of the school teachers, and it all rushes in 130 pages to this farewell, where she flees on the train back down south to a new teaching post. And both boys come into the last gesture of the storyline. And this is how Thea Astley, I think, very brilliantly finishes this novel or novella. And one of the great things about it, because it has a reasonably short length, she builds up the most fantastic rhythm of going backwards and forwards in time. If you read it, you can go backwards and forward in time with her, and there are places to go. This is the ending. The guy who's more upper crust teacher calibre for her, he's hanging around wanting to get a yes, but she's rushing, leaving both men. He says about the council workman who's not quite suitable, "The animal, the damned animal! Are you hurt, Elsie?" She shook her head dumbly, turning from him, caught sight of the other on the platform, leaning against the window of her compartment, head buried on his arms. He was sobbing shockingly, as is always will be when men cry. And over again he kept saying, "I love you, Elsie, I love you." Has anyone else in this room ever gone into these zones of emotion? No compunction filled her heart, only a great embarrassment. God, will he never go away? John and she stepped into the corridor. "Will you write, chick?" "Of course. Use any offer, seize on any chance, never let an opportunity slip." It was the watchword of her sex. She suffered his kisses, her mind detached, already winging south on the journey and its opportunities. When she took her face from his, she managed to glance round his arm at the window. Harry had gone. The bell rang noisily. Finally on the platform, relatives hurled last frantic goodbyes, jumping down off the steps. If you can do these actions on a tropical day in Townsville, that sounds good. The green air quivered and slid as the train broke through its thin veils. A final pressure of her to him, a hurried last kiss, and he was gone. Oh, John, he was gone. As the train lurched, stopped, lurched and gathered speed. She sat by the window, not daring to look out at the crowds streaming past. There was no one she knew in sight, not even the loyal John, spelt Jon. Classy, isn't it? Then suddenly there was commotion. Well, you've got to look for these textual things. Then suddenly there was commotion in the groups following the train. The people parted to let a running figure through, and the next minute Harry, the workman, panting as if at the end of a long race, drew level with her compartment, almost superhumanly kept pace with it for a few seconds. He was thrusting a brown paper bag at her. She, looking neither to right nor left, heard only his last words as the packet fell through the window onto the seat. Elsie, here's some fruit I brung you." She's one of the greatest Australian writers, but she was a North Queenslander, she was a Roman Catholic, and she was a woman, and she wrote about women enjoying sex in the 1950s and 60s. She's a great writer, though. I think that last book she wrote about the Aboriginal issues is Heartland. I forget the title name, but it's a great achievement. It's a very sombre book, though, her last novel. Anyway, Vance Palmer, The Farmer Remembers the Song. And I'll throw in another advert tonight. Vance Palmer's book that we used to do at school in the 60s, The Passage, is great. Really great. It deserves a TV series. And if people read it, they'll be looking into the mirror of Australia. He wrote a poem, The Farmer Remembers the Song. Will they never fade or pass? The mud and the misty figures endlessly coming in file through the foul morass, and the grey flood water lipping the reeds and grass, and the steel wings drumming. The hills are bright in the sun. There's nothing changed or married in the well-known places. When work for the day is done, there's talk and quiet laughter and gleams of fun on the old folks' faces. I've returned to these, the farm and the kindly bush, and the young calves lowing, and all that my mind sees is a quaking bog in a mist, stark, snapped trees, and the dark song flowing. And unfortunately, that was to be the experience, and was the experience, of far too many men from this district. Is that not so, Gladys? So, I wrote this down when I sat at the table, because we're all masked, and one thing triggers another thing, talking of this great hero of ours. Ned came down to Melbourne town, he wore his COVID mask, he said, "Hey mates, the bullets bouncing off me cast iron hat and outlaw skin are bouncing still. But these little mites of plague could do me in." Spasms next to Flinders Street Station. As I drop, a kid fingers his mobile, watching a movie of me at Glen Rowan doing the police traps in. I don't know about Kelly. He certainly wanted to take on the world, didn't he? You know, anyone who can ride that many kilometres a day on a horse on a summer day, I'm not really joking. He evidently was the greatest horseman in the colony, they say, and on a long summer day could do unbelievable distance on horseback. He was quite something. So I wrote this sitting in my little white Getz next to the railway line, and maybe one day home I will give James some money and he can build a palace on top of this one. Here we go. I could write a poem. I could be that poem in some sense, in a high-rise cage over the ocean horizon hanging. What time shall it be? Let's make it dawn with all the excitations coming to our awakened eyeballs expectant. I will write a poem in my small white Hyundai, next to the dead parallel lines called railway. I'll write it, goodies enough. They could place it next to a door one day, the white little bubble car. Folks could come, hoping my spirit still survives, to see as they chant next to me. Rear vision mirror, words from a dead star, my brain, your brain, more precious words being so. More rather than less, well, it sounds good. Prayer of libation to God, football refrain, warrior chants, idols of lovers whispered, and the treehouse. Yeah, let's get to the treehouse and right up there, at the crook of the branch in the branch crook. Let's, eh? Are you waiting for follow-on, not hollow-on words to entertain your mind? Here they are. Follow the words. I built a treehouse in the crook of the high branch, its platform vantaging me to see the boles below on the trunk, the boles that always make me feel sad. Don't they make you feel sad, those empty holes in the great truck? Auditor, I order you and you to sadness. Know you as you trace the empty bowls with eye or finger, that great sadness, where the quick green branch may have quickened, and all, alas, is merely now whence I perch and scribble my tree trunk's ode. I make a swing from that bowl, if the branch had branched, for the ghost. Will you swing with me, along with the ghost? Will you help me? Let's translate this into that which can be translated, on and on. And how to write? I could do a poem at a busy Five Ways cafe corner at the Cross around 1970, watching for witch magic muralists, Grandad doing hairs and talking to Saffron next to his shiny Stark motorbike, talking to Anita about Gigli and Italian opera, and words down from my mind to the page as the Lawson Brennan Whitman crowd saunter by. They saunter still, and I write of Slessor, Mum's patient, on the white sheet. Ah, the bells of the harbour and the foggy boogie of foggy horns, sounding warning to those aloft and below in the setting. And at the Poets' Hall of Fame I could sit and write a poem. Yes, I'll lay me chorus down. I'll sing of long-lost bush boys and scribble through the fire some sparks. I'll worldly fling at Guyra town. Question marks, hyphens, exclamations, points and lazing commas. Outing they go, looking to work up thoughts and nurture, buttress what may yet have voice to be.
Got anything you'd like to add, Chris? Yeah, no worries. All right. Well, we'll start with another, a little funny one, because Steve over there did one about like the Dunning man. Well, this one's shit too. There once was a man and his name was Sonny, who wore a big hat and had a lot of money, but he had diarrhea and was running to the dunny, slipped and fell in the dunny. It was really, really funny. His legs stuck out and he looked like a twig. He had diarrhea, he couldn't hold in his shit, and his shit sprayed out. He got covered in it. Now he walks to the dun and he always has a sit. There was a man named Sonny. It was his darkest hour when they pulled him from the dunny. It took a lot of power. They gave him some soap, a bath and also a shower. And these days Sonny smells like a sunflower. Okay, and just here we go. This was the moo variant. It's the new variant. The moo variant will turn sheep into cows, cow turds into pansies, and sunflowers. Will grow tits on a bull, which is useless as male politicians wearing fishnets and a dress. To avoid the moo variant, here's what to do. Stand on your head in a bucket of cow poo, but make sure that the bucket is very deep so that you can remain asleep as a sheep. The moo variant only affects those surnamed Murphy. It's a made-up disease and is known as a furphy. You won't get a runny nose nor a cough, but it will make all your genitals fall off. The moo variant only gets those wearing a frown and changes them into a full-blown clown. Its origin is a mystery and it's totally unknown, but I can't wait to see a clown get fully blown. The moo variant only spreads from gob to knob. Sorry fellas, but there'll be no more head job. Be careful and stay home once it starts, because the only cure is to breathe your own farts.
All right, in your thoughts, man.
Yeah, you just got to put it out there. I won't get it. All right. Well, moving right along, this was about a donkey, an octopus, and a duck. We're driving along the road in the truck, and this is what the octopus said: "If I don't get in water, I'll soon be dead." The duck yelled out, "I can see a dam." The octopus replied, "I need salt water, man." The donkey said, "I think we're out of luck. The duck's not a man and can't drive a truck. Duck doesn't have hands and cannot steer. What the frick are the three of us doing here? A donkey, an octopus, passengers in a truck, miles from an ocean, driven by a duck, and the duck has no hands and can't control the truck, and we're headed for a giant pothole." The duck said, "Shut up and just let me be." And he drove the truck all the way to the sea. The octopus invited the donkey to join him. The donkey declined because he couldn't swim, but the duck and the octopus swam about. The donkey got drinks because it was his shout. And you know what happened? Listen to this. The three of them lay in the sun on the beach and got pissed. They all got sunburned laying in the sun after stealing the truck and taking it for a run. Of course. All right.
That's a little familiar.
Christopher, welcome.
Welcome.
Yes. Chris.
Can I ask you to read that letter? It's a poem about New England, actually, but less major.
Oh, shit.
Introduce us to you.
Sorry. My name is Christopher, and I have stutters, so I'm not always be able to speak at some times, which is unfortunate. But other times I didn't get into a certain rhythm. I do a certain rhythm, and then I get to a stage when I can't stop speaking. As if now I want to have a small presentation of a poem by John Donne from his Holy Sonnets called "Death Be Not Vowed."
Some are called the mighty and terrible.
Yep.
Good on you. He's here tonight, isn't he, John Dunn?
Death be not proud, though some are called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those who thou thinkst thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet can thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which by thy pictures be much pleasure, then from thee much more will flow. And soonest our best man with thee doth go. Rest of their bones and soul's delivery. Thou art slave to fire, chance, kingdoms, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell, as poppy or charms can make us sleep as well. And better than thy stroke, why swellst thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die.
Oh, Steve Wordsmith once again.
Well, it's really good to be here in the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Absolutely fabulous. We've got some good poets here tonight. It's beautiful to see. Always great. See, I think, I might change the tone of things just a little bit, and, we're sort of getting into some shit around the place, so I'm going to try things a little bit differently, I'll tell a story by Ogilvy, and Ogilvy is one of the Australian poets that we study and such, and this story, the reason I tell this story is for certain purpose, and it's called Heroes. I met him first near Warren, working on a starved-out farm. He was skeletor and sallow, lean of shank and long of arm, wide lips and flared-out nostrils that bespoke his native blood. Battler, scratching hard existence in this land of drought and flood. But he won a tight survival, chasing rabbits day and night. He had no gun nor ammunition, used to knock 'em out in flight with a waddy for a weapon. Junk or rock was just the same, and he'd grab that groggy bunny and he'd say, that was deadly aim. Seldom off his target gave those spielers a little rest in them knock-em sock-em alleys in the showground out the west. The day that I enlisted, he was standing next to me, and I heard him tell the captain that his name was Darky Lee. Or often quiet and moody, lonely in a crowd, no doubt, or perhaps the dip of colour made him feel the odd man out. But he was a willing soldier and a dinkum cobber too, like the night the MPs caught us at that swai game in the loo. Yeah, he nailed that provost sergeant cold as any side of meat, with a well-aimed whiskey bottle at the range of 20 feet. Mighty quick we were escaping, and I heard our mate exclaim as we scarpered through the alleys, fellas, that was deadly aim. Then our mob embarked for service to a land across the sea, where the final call awaited for that bloke called Darky Lee. Yeah, it was at the Flanders dust-up at a place called Blardner's Court. We copped a bad position, yeah, men cut off without support, and that enemy machine gun keeping up a steady fire, safe and sound in their encampment behind barricade and wire. Flat we lay like bloody lizards on that piece of shell-raked plain, and that enemy machine gun pelted lead like summer rain. Well, our choice was die like heroes, or the white surrender flag, when our officer decided it was time to sky the rag, take a choice, a German prison, or a group of unmarked mounds, when this bloke goes racing past me like a hare before the hounds strike me blue, but it was Darky, like an emu crouching low. In his right hand was a grenade, swinging ready for the throw. No cover to protect him, dashing daring as you please, where those Mitchell houses chattered and the bullets hummed like bees, and fair into that enemy gun pit, he dispatched his first grenade. Screams were heard from brave men dying as that scarlet blossom burst. Then he sent 'em up another just as quickly as the first, German gunner or rabbit. It was all the same to our champion Bundy chucker. He maintained his deadly aim. Then a dying spurt of gunfire rang the bell on Darky Lee. By the time the medics got there, he was very nearly gone, though his belly parts were punctured, his heart was hanging on, and in final grief we listened to the gasp that shook his frame, and the final words he uttered, "Fellas, that was deadly aim." Just another unsung hero gone unhallowed and unsung, one of many number when the final curtain rung. Native son with small ambition, oh, our hearts decree, a soldier in the true tradition, rest untroubled, Darky Lee. Now I tell that story for a purpose. These are heroes, true heroes, that died for us, died to keep this country free. And one of the things that we have a battle on at the moment, we have a war on again. It's a psychological war that's out to upset people and to cause fear in this land. Fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. Love is the heart. We need to follow the heart at this time. I'll tell you another little story by that well-known poet Anon. There once was a shearer by the name of Bluey the Brink. He was a devil for work and a devil for drink. He could shear his 200 a day without fear and drink without wink and 4 gallons of beer. Now Jimmy the barman who served out the drink, he just hated the sight of here Bluey the Brink. He stayed much too late and he came much too soon, in the morning and the night and the daytime and at noon. Well, one day when Jimmy was cleaning the bar with sulphuric acid that he kept in a jar, old Bluey come yelling, "I'm bawling with thirst. Whatever you've got, Jim, just give me the first." Well, it ain't in the histories and it ain't put in print, but Bluey drank acid with never a stint. Said, "That's the stuff, Jimmy, will strike me stone dead. That'll make me the ringer of Stevenson shed." Well, all that long day as he served out the beer, poor Jimmy was worried with his troubles and fear. Too worried to argue, too anxious to fight. All he could see was this corpse in his fright. Well, early next morning as he opened the door, along came the shearer, he was yelling for more, with his eyebrows all singed and his whiskers deranged, and holes in his hide like a dog with the mange. Said Jimmy, "And how'd you like that new stuff?" Said Bluey, "It was fine, but I ain't had enough. It gave me great courage to shear and to fight. But every cough set me whiskers alight. I thought I knew drink, but I must have been wrong, for what you gave me was proper and strong. It set me to coughing, and you know I'm no liar, but every cough set my whiskers on fire." One more, James? Yeah, one more. Okay. Well, you know, we're very close to the Guyra River and the Guyra catchment area, so I'd like to just tell this one, and, you know, because I've got red boots on and I've got, you know, I'll tell the story of the redback spider. By the sluggish river Guyra lived this wicked redback spider, who was just about as vicious as could be. Now the place he'd made his camp in was this Rusty Jones's jam tin in a paddock near the showground at Moree. Well, near him lay this shearer snoozing. He'd been drinking beer and boozing all the night before and all the previous day. And the cooking of the cookers and the noise of the Showtown spruikers failed to raise him from the trance in which he lay. Well, there came this crafty-looking spieler with a dainty-looking Sheila. They were collecting wood to make a fire, and he said, "There's a boozer, and he's going to be a loser. If he isn't, you can christen me a liar. Well, you just stand and take me, honey, while I fan this mug for money, and we'll have some dainty luxuries for tea." But she said, "Don't be silly. You go back and boil the billy. You can safely leave this mug to little me." Well, she circled ever nearer to that dopey-looking shearer, his pockets bulging fast asleep and snug. But she never saw the spider that was circling round beside her. She was too busy with the money and the mug. Well, the spider needed dinner. He'd been daily growing thinner. He'd fasted long and for her feet did yearn. When she reached that shearer's pocket, he darted like a rocket and he bit that spieler Sheila on the stern. Well, the Sheila started squealing. Her clothes she was unpeeling. To hear her yells would make you feel forlorn. while one hand on the pipe was pressing, the other was undressing, and she reached the camp the way that she was born. Well, the shearer, pale and haggard, back to town he staggered, where he caught a train and he gave the booze a rest. But he'll never know the spider that was living by the Guyra had saved him 90 smackers of the best. Thank you. It's always good to be here, and have a great night. It's good to be a poet, and I hope you get back and do some more, but we'll see how we're going for time, James. That the world is a better place because poets are in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
The WHIRLD or the WORLD? Love that, John Dunn.
There is a quote. Poets are the unofficial legislators of the world.
Yes, for sure.
Anyone else want to do another one? You're welcome to.
Give us another one.
Oh,
off you go.
All right, well, Ashley's asked me to read this one by Les Murray.
Because I thought your voice was
because he thought my voice suits it.
it comes from here.
Les Murray passed away in April 2019 at the age of 80 in Taree. He published nearly 30 volumes of poetry, and his career spanned 40 years. His poetry was published in 11 languages: French, German, Italian, Catalan, Spanish, Norwegian, Dutch, Swedish, Hindi, Russian and Danish. And he won many awards. So, he was born in Nabayak. I don't even know where that is, on the north coast of New South Wales. So, but this one that I'll be reading out is a New England farm, August 1914. So it's just before World War I broke out. So that's just to put it in context, so you kind of understand what it's going to be about. August is the windy month, the month of mares, tails high in heaven. August is the fiery month, the wind-swept doorstep of the year. But who is this rider on the road with urgent spurs of burning silver? August is the winter's death. He dries the rotted June rain in the earth, stiffens fat roots, ignites within the peach tree flower and seed. August is the time to think of facing ploughshares, getting our new boots, and of the first calves shivering in the grass, still wet with birth slime. But who is this rider at the gate? Why do the people run to listen? August is the New Year's hinge. Time out of mind, we've stacked the raddled autumn corn stalks on the riverbank for burning. Watching the birds come dodging through the smoke to feast on beetles, time out of mind. We've retraced last year's furrows with the plough. How can this August fail us? Why do the young men saddle horses? Why do the women grieve together? Woo! Les Murray.
James, I can say something else, can I?
Yes, please. Oh, Gladys.
It's true of New England, the seasons that.
And before we welcome Gladys Wilson back up here, the 17th of October, so the 15th, 16th, 17th of October are the Guyra Trout Festival. So you can come to Guyra and get a fishing rod with a fly on it and catch a trout in a dam.
Oh, what a way to go!
But not only that, there's going to be a really cool market here on the Saturday, here and down at the Polo. And on the Sunday morning, we've got the Poets' Breakfast here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. So welcome to Guyra, and 9 o'clock Sunday morning, the 17th of October. So Gladys, please.
Stu for welcoming me back into the fold. It's been, as I said, an eternity since I was here, and I'm so glad. But I'd also like to thank the young poet over there for his wonderful work tonight, and it's just so great to have him here, because that was a lovely bit of poetry. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I just enjoyed being back here to all the people, and it's lovely to have the crowd in here tonight, the people in here. But James and Steve have been a wonderful support to me, and I know sometimes they might think, oh, well, I go under my pain because I keep coming back in here. But I love coming in and meeting people, and I'm looking forward to the Poets' Breakfast, I can assure you. But it's just been so lovely to be back and to have such a warm welcome, because I said a few weeks out of it, and I'm thinking, well, am I going to come back or am I not going to come back? Well, I am back here, and as I said, I'll have some more material coming up probably in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully at the Poets' Breakfast, because I think there's not only just writing it, but I think there's a message in there for us, and even during our lockdown and the times of COVID. But once again, thank you to the young poet there, because that was excellent work, and I'm sure that he'll have something else too, because that was absolutely excellent. I haven't heard poetry like that in a long, long time, because it was real, and this is what it's all about. But at any rate, James, I thank you once again, and Steve, my good old friend over there. I certainly, I said, I'm so delighted. It's just like me winning the lottery, being back in here, because it's just a lovely place to come and everybody's friendly. But at any rate, I thank you, and I'm now going to head home to where I live. And I'm sure over the next few days I'll have some more stuff down, because I just love writing, and this is, I think, most likely my 10th that I've had break. Since the Poetry Hall of Fame has opened.
10.
So I think that, so the other one, it's certainly going to be quite brutal, because I think it's just a road map, you know, we're sort of in the road map and we follow, and we have these winding pathways and heavens knows, so it's all coming together, so I'm hopefully.
Gladys, what are you hearing for? Did you say that the next one's going to be quite rude?
No, real.
Oh, real.
Oh,
rude.
Oh, they go together.
I'm heading home, and I thank everybody, but at any rate, it's congratulations to the young fellow over there, because his poetry is absolutely spot on, and it is nice to have him in here, and it's lovely to, you know, be back to sit and see all you guys again, because I tell you, it was sadly missed.
It was an apt poem for this evening, wasn't it?
And it was, it's so nice, and I said it's always a pleasure just coming in here ordinary times, but the
Gladys, you're just revelling in all the testosterone. Let's tell the truth.
No, she lives just over from those big alpine-like vast svelte white ghost guns. And they send out vibrations and to use the word from the poem, rattled her. You know what rattling is? You have to look that up. Keep going.
Right. I'll see you guys, I'll see you, Jane, before next week, but I'm certainly glad to be back in here. And, you know, so I have to just do my stuff again and get myself motivated and the old nerves all back in order again.
You're working on a reputation, Gladys. That's what you're working on. A good reputation.
I've got a good reputation. But only I know it. I don't know too many do, but I know that. So okay, James.
Thank you, Gladys.
See you around, and I'll. At any rate, thank you, young fella. That's wonderful.
And Gladys definitely has the biggest heart in Guyra, that's for sure. And it's amazing that, really. I do, so thank you.
Gladys. Next week.
And it's just proof that anyone, any age, can begin to write poetry. Like, really, she's written 10 since Poetry Hall of Fame came along, and maybe only, I don't know, 1 or 2 before that, but I really don't know for sure.
And, and I was 77 back in July.
Oh,
I was born on the 19th of July, 44.
All right. So one last one before Gladys goes. This was one I wrote last week. It's
Oh yes, we're going to listen to this one.
well, it's called Listen. Yeah. Listen as the wind blows into falling snows, water running in a creek, duck wings flapping, frogs croak and waves slapping in the night, ears ring, morning and the birds sing, magpies chortle and crow of crows listen as the wind blows. Though the silence deafens us, reed warblers flitting in the rushes, sounds of nature like paintbrushes, 1,000 sounds do surround us when we sit quietly down and listen. In each and every moment, missing the wind whistle through a fence, a peace and serene moments, as softly quiet as falling snows. Listen as the wind blows. The moos of cows and bars of sheep, old trees creak and speak, water flowing, winds blowing, rivers running slowly, flowing like a dream gently down. The stream of consciousness is loud in the quiet. Listen to thy thoughts and write as the wind blows. Listen. There's no need to speak. And we can say it next week and listen as the wind blows.
Which right? W-R-I-T-E.
W-R-I-T-E, yeah.
Could be both, could be.
Could be, yeah. And Steve Wordsmith, once again, one
Oh,
more.
sorry, something. Oh,
When did Ogilvy write that poem about the...
It's always good to pop back here, isn't it? You know, lovely, and see all the people at the, you know, the Seahorse Medicine Cafe and the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. It's wonderful, you know.
And a
See all people alive have some talent. From where it comes, it's not known. Oh, we do know. Some sing and dance or act out romance. It's a party of life like a poem. When telling a joke is your forte, or telling the humour of life, or painting a beautiful landscape, or serenading the friends in your life. Yes, talent's a part of our makeup. It comes natural in the things that we do, not always in the things expected, and not always in the things that we choose. When the fires of inspiration are ignited and the poetic words start to flow, like the rapids in the mountains and the imagination grows, don't dam the flow of magic. Be inspired by every word. Let us use the words we are given to instigate the change of logic that is needed in these times, and voice the inspiration from our inert higher self and realise and know that we have got this and be inspired by every word. I want to do a poem here that I wrote many years ago, and it was by I got asked to do a reenactment of Breaker Morant trial, and I was to be the person, J.F. Thomas, the solicitor that was asked to defend Breaker Morant at the time of... Breaker Morant was a bush poet, and he travelled this land and with his friends, doing poetry and such, and then he went to a call-up in a way-up place, and I went to do a bit of research to what he was doing, and in a place in Tenterfield where he came from, and I went up round his old homestead, and this is what struck me.
You mean he's that advocate, not Breaker Morant? Talking about his advocate.
Thomas,
yes.
yeah.
Right.
Breaker Morant said, "Shoot straight, you bastards," because he was the first man who was shot by Australian soldiers. The house now was beaten and broken. There was bullet holes in the flag. The words that he'd thought of and were spoken, lost by the tears of the sad. He came home to a town that he'd left from, hurt, disgusted and mad, torn apart by a wrong-made decision that crucified one of his lads. The Aussie troops they had mustered from a nation newly born, from the outback stations where a million sheep were shorn, came the men who rode the fences. They were young, but hard as nails, with a pioneer's spirit and a will that seldom fails. They were brought up on the stock horse, that sturdy working steed, that very seldom failed you when it came the time for speed. They were told of the great adventure on them far off foreign shores, so they rolled up their swags and they ventured to fight in that thankless war. One of these blokes was the breaker. He'd spent his days on the track. With his mates he'd humped his balooey, yes he'd wandered the great outback. Wrongly charged and later convicted, a young Thomas was given the task of representing the spirited breaker for crimes that he'd never been part. Like the Christ, he'd been made the scapegoat to cover up the wrongs of the proud. He was there seeking a life of adventure, not intending to carry a shroud. The pleas of Thomas were fruitless to convince that the verdict was wrong, so they lined him up and they shot him, the inspiration for many a song. Breaker Morant was a hero, Thomas was one as well, and I feel the culprits that disgraced them have located themselves in hell. He came home to a small country town. He founded the Tenterfield Star. This town of many memories will always carry a scar. Thomas spent the rest of his days there with thoughts of those African crags where Australian soldiers aimed their rifles and put bullet holes in our flag. It's the sort that you remember, the ones that people might hate when they shoot one of your cobbers and he's supposed to be their mate. When the God of all creation sent his one, his only son, I wasn't even thought of when they said he was the one. When he turned the waters into wine and he touched the blind man's eyes. When he walked upon the waters, it was way before my time. And the thorns were digging in his head and they spat upon his face. With eyes so deep he looked at them and he shone with all his grace. He's the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. And even back 2,000 years, he was thinking of us then. Thank you.
I will see you guys later.
Okay. All right, Chris has got one more. Welcome.
Oh, well, I'll have to listen to his. Oh, my word, he's got one more. Yes, I've got to listen to his. It's excellent.
So, before we finish, I thought I'd just have a small presentation of a poem that was written in 1871 by Charles Dodgson, or as he was more popularly known, Lewis Carroll, which is called Jabberwocky. And I do remember as well that in 2007 I was fortunate enough to present it at the talent show, and I will say that that I was so excited with the euphoria of performing it that I couldn't actually remember if I got first place, and so I won't actually lie and say that I did. "'Twas brillig in the slithy tove, did Guyra and gimble in the wave, or mimsy with the bower groves, and the moan rass outgabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jubjub bird, and shun the Fenrir's band of snats. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time manx and foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree and stood a while in thought. And as in off his thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the toggy wood, burbling as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal bay went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with his head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Frog ye stay, callooh, he chortled with joy. 'Twas brillig in the slide the toad, the Guyra and gimble in the wave, or mimsy with the bargoes, and the moan raths outgabe.
Woo! Oh, well, that's a really great introduction because this morning I was just listening to White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane, and White Rabbit was based on what do you call it? Through the Looking Glass, Alice in Wonderland. And I rejiggered White Rabbit. One pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small, and the one that government gives you doesn't do anything at all. Remember what the Dormouse said? Feed your head, because the men in government get up and tell you where to go, and you've just had a psychological virus and your mind is moving slow, and when logic and proportion are locked down in a soggy bed, the White Knight is using doublespeak, and Gladys is off with her head. Just ask Alice, I think she'll know. Alright, Gladys, we'll see you later. And we're going to end with a big thanks for everyone tonight. And giving daily thanks for the Most High and I, giving daily thanks to Jah Rastafari, giving daily thanks for the loving eyes, heart, giving daily thanks right from the start, starting off each day on the Spirit's way, praising the Most High and I every day, honouring each and every single being, infinite mind reflected in all that I'm seeing in this infinitely connected energy field, ineffable, compassionate love won't yield. Giving daily thanks for this attitude of universal acceptance through gratitude, with gratitude for all the pain we feel, giving us the strength needed to heal. Giving daily thanks for all of our pain, giving thanks for without pain there is no gain. Giving thanks for all our daughters and sons. Giving daily thanks for I and everyone. Giving daily thanks for our ability to forgive, given daily thanks for this life I live.
Fifth dimensional stuff, really.
Thank you very much, everybody, and out there in Face World and New World and every world and the other across the other side of the world. See you later.
Bye now.
All right. Thanks very much. Well done.
Well done. Bye, James.
That's